Welcome back, everybody, to the No Kim Book Club. Today is June 19th, 2025. I'm Yoko, your host, and we're on the number 4 of the Rhythm of Seven series. Is about the Jubilee, searching for the Jubilee timeline in the Rhythm of Seven, God's Rhythm. Okay, so tonight we're going to be, the video part, we're going to be looking at another 30 minutes of the Book of Jubilees full documentary. And LG has a few things that's lined up before that. Okay, so I'm going to hand the mic over to you, LG.
Thank you, Yoko, and good evening, everyone. We'll say the Lord's Prayer, so just bow your hearts. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right. Well, the first thing I want to do is just quickly revisit our timeline that's kind of running alongside right now. I wanted to go back and bring up the very original timeline that we started out with, because now we're back to that, but I've added the revolutions. Sorry. So I'm going to share screen real quick. 1 second. Okay, so this is the very original timeline, the one that we started out with on session 1. And this ended up being the correct count. This was when we were doing the 1029, but the revolutions ended up not being correct. So I just wanted to point that out, because that then turned into this chart that we spoke about last week. And I didn't talk a lot about it while we were on the recording, but this is the chart that we've developed doing the 49 increments for the Jubilee. And I was kind of amazed of this pattern that developed right here. If you see the red font going straight down, that was the original increments, the 1029 that was separating each of these. And when I plotted them out on the 1,000 years marks like this, they ended up in this line, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I thought it was kind of amazing. So where we're going to hone in on is right about this blue mark is when the 5507, so Jesus's crucifixion, happened in the blue time period of this Jubilee 113. So kind of what we're looking at up close is going to be our timeline right before that, and then we're going to go forward right after that. So these are the revolutions of the Jubilees that we'll kind of be focusing in on. And this chart will just be useful as we go forward. And then the final one is this most recent one. And I just tried to keep this one as clean as possible. We still have the years of creation that we're always going to have. This time, instead of it beginning with 0, it's beginning at that 7-year mark, which indicates the year of the fall, which coincides with the even 5500, because the year of the fall is when the 5500 year prophecy was given to Adam by God. And this is just like the original timeline. Remember, I had the 500 increments because we had to drill down. So all I did is delete those just so it's a little cleaner. And these are the revolutions of the Jubilees. So just to reiterate, there are 21 sets of Jubilees. 21 sets of 49 years equal 1,029, and that's the count that we're on. Each of these are 1,029 years apart. We get to the center here, the 5507, and that is the year that Jesus was crucified. And we can look at the actual Jubilee revolution up close on the chart we just saw. So we're going forward. We're lost in time, but no matter lost or not, we know that it's been at least 1,400 years since this 5507. So if you add about 1,000 or 1,400 years to that, that's putting us somewhere right here. So that's kind of where we're honing in on for currency. But now we're going to start plotting some events. We know that, Noah's flood is going to end up about right here. So that's something that we can talk about in a few minutes. But I'm going to pause with that for just a moment, and then we're going to go to the video next. So if you have anything you want to talk about with this now, we can, and then we can also revisit it after the video.
LG, I was listening to this section earlier, and I noticed that he was talking about the different jubilees, and I think he said that the Tower of Babel was the 34th jubilee. But I just want us to listen to the different when he says this happened in a certain jubilee. If we could just jot that down and come back to it at the end of the video tonight. I just want us to I wasn't sure what he said about the Tower of Babel and the flood and all that, but he quoted which jubilee the things happened in, like when you know Cain and all the different things that he connotes on his video tonight. But I thought he said that the Tower of Babel happened in the 34th jubilee, but I can't imagine that was correct because anyway, I just want us to take note of those different dates, and when he says this happened in this jubilee, just jot those down, and I'd like to discuss those at the end.
Perfect. Yes. There are quite a few places he does that. And now you've got me wondering, we could go, now that we do have that square chart, the Jubilee chart, we could actually go and look into that year and see actually we could look up Jubilee 34 and see what years of creation it would have occurred in, and if it's even matching up with Babel. And then that's our whole issue, is even if all of that is right, I know I sound like a broken record, but if they injected or whatever they did with the time, took it away, added to it, whatever they did, was after Jesus's crucifixion. So I do want to plot all of those Old Testament things, because I think it's going to end up getting us where we need to be. But then I think we still have to account for, even with the correctness and purity of panning all of that out, it still went off the rails, after the 5,500 years of creation. But yeah, I want to do that. And can I say something else? I'm sorry. Y'all help me figure this out. It's a little off subject, but not. Have you ever had an idea and it hits you and it's like 100% crystal clear, and you're like, Oh, that's big. I got to remember that. And then you can't.
Yes.
Okay. So I was listening to a video, nothing about this really. I mean, it's all Jesus and that kind of stuff. But anyway, talking about, oh, he started his ministry, when he was 26. So I think somehow, some way, that is important because, all right, so if you had 21 years would be what? 21 years would be 3 of the 7 parts of the 49 years of a Jubilee. I think, and then remember Jesus's birth was 3 BC. So when he was 26 years old, it would have been, 23, right? It would have been 20, because 3 years are in AD. So it would have been 23 years BC. I mean, AD. Am I making sense?
I'm
No.
tracking. I'm tracking with you, LG.
And when this dawned on me, I somehow had rectified getting to 21. And then that was divisible by 7. And then the way the video was, and I took screenshots, I just don't remember which ones they are, but I still have them. Somehow, some way, that was going to tell me what portion of the Jubilee we were in. Were we in the first 7 years, or the second set of 7 years, or the third set of 7 years, or the fourth set of 7 years? And I was lining it up with that, with Jesus being 26 when he went in the ministry, and then as quickly as I had it, it disappeared. So I don't remember what it is, but if anyone gets some kind of thought like that, don't do what I did. Back to Hope's point, get an ink pen and write it down, because you think you'll remember it, but you won't. Not that divine little lightning bolt. It's like fleeting. Anybody have anything before I start the video? All right, here we go. I think this one is going to run to like the 59-minute mark, picking up at the 31. And when the video stopped last week, Noah, the ark had been on the water. I believe maybe even the olive branch had come back. So we're right at the end of the flood and then walking out into the new world after that. So we'll pick up right there, and I'll see y'all on the other side.
For sacrifice. Jubilees is careful to note which ones could be eaten and which couldn't. Even in crisis, the dietary laws mattered. God's order applied in all circumstances. On the 17th day of the second month, in the 600th year of Noah's life, the waters came, rain from above, floods from below. Heaven and earth conspired to wash away corruption. For 40 days, water covered everything. Jubilees tracks the flood's timeline with precision that Genesis doesn't match. The waters rose for 40 days. They remained at their height for 150 days. They began to lower on the first day of the 10th month. The tops of mountains appeared on the first month of Noah's 601st year. This isn't just storytelling detail. For Jubilees, these dates mattered deeply. The flood wasn't random punishment. It was scheduled cleansing, marked on heaven's calendar long before the first raindrop fell. Inside the ark, a remnant of life waited. 8 humans, pairs of animals, seeds and plants, not chosen by chance but selected as living vessels of renewal. When everything corrupt was gone, they would rebuild the world. After exactly 1 year, Noah opened the ark. The ground had dried. A new world waited. But something had changed in heaven too. Jubilees tells us that after the flood, most of the fallen angels were bound in judgment. Their leader, Mastema, begged God to keep some demons free, and strangely, God agreed. Let 1/10 of them remain before me, God said in Jubilees, and let 9/10 go down to the place of judgment. Evil would continue, but limited, contained on a divine leash. Noah stepped onto clean earth and built an altar. He took clean animals and birds and offered sacrifice. The smoke rose to heaven, accepted, unlike Cain's offering generations before. God made a covenant with Noah, promising never again to destroy the earth with water. But Jubilees adds something crucial. God also restored the true calendar that had been lost since Enoch's time, 364 days, divided perfectly into weeks and seasons. The world began again, washed clean, but not perfect, and time resumed its march, now with the rainbow as a marker of God's patience. The flood had come exactly when heaven ordained it. The next judgment would come on schedule too. Noah's aftermath and the curse of Canaan. The waters receded. Life began again. Noah's first act on dry ground was building an altar to thank God. His second was planting a vineyard. Jubilees tells us the timing of these events with care, the 27th day of the second month, 1 year and 10 days after the flood began. The vine grew quickly in soil enriched by the flood. Noah harvested grapes and made wine, not knowing its full power. He drank and fell asleep naked in his tent. What happens next is one of Scripture's strangest tales. Ham, Noah's middle son, saw his father's nakedness and told his brothers outside. Shem and Japheth walked backward into the tent, carrying a garment between them. They covered their father without looking at him. When Noah woke and learned what happened, he cursed not Ham, but Ham's son Canaan. Why curse the grandson instead of the son? Genesis doesn't explain. Jubilees does. In this expanded account, we learn that Ham didn't merely see Noah naked. He failed to honor the sacred boundary between father and son. This wasn't just embarrassment, it was a breach of holy order. Jubilees adds that Noah had divided the earth between his 3 sons before this incident. When Ham showed disrespect, Noah didn't change the land division, but he did curse Canaan to servitude. The timing matters. The land was already given. The relationships were now broken. Cursed be Canaan, Noah said, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. With these words, Noah set a pattern that would echo through centuries. The descendants of Canaan would serve the descendants of Shem and Japheth. Jubilees tracks the spread of Noah's family with geographic precision. Shem took the middle of the earth, including what would become Israel. Ham took the hot south. Japheth received the cool northern regions. Each son swore an oath to respect these boundaries, but oaths get broken. Jubilees tells us that Canaan looked at Lebanon and Jordan and decided to take it, though it belonged to Shem. Cursed be Canaan, the text repeats, for he settled in the land that wasn't his. This matters deeply for Jubilees' original readers. The book was likely written when Jews faced threats from surrounding nations. By telling this expanded story of Canaan's curse, Jubilees isn't just explaining ancient history. It's claiming that the enemies of Israel are living on stolen land against divine decree. Noah lived 350 years after the flood, completing 950 years of life. Jubilees notes that he was perfect in all his conduct, keeping God's commands faithfully. In 19 Jubilees and 2 weeks and 5 years, the exact count matters, Noah died. Before his death, Noah warned his sons about corruption. Jubilees adds a detail Genesis lacks. Noah specifically warned against consuming blood and mixing different types of animals, plants, or clothing. Keeping boundaries clear was sacred duty. Noah's sons built cities and began nations. Children were born. The world filled again. 10 generations had passed from Adam to Noah. Now a new count would begin. The clock kept ticking toward Abraham, Moses, and beyond. What makes Jubilees' account of Noah so striking isn't just the flood story. It's how perfectly everything fits into heaven's timetable. The flood came right on schedule. Noah's life spanned exactly 19 Jubilees and some weeks. Nothing was random. Everything was counted. And in this careful counting, we see Jubilees' message. Even disaster serves God's timing. Even curses fulfill heaven's plan. The angels keep watching. The tablets keep recording. Time keeps flowing toward its appointed end. The Tower of Babel and the Great Division. 3 generations after Noah, humanity gathered in the land of Shinar with one language and one purpose. Come, they said, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach to heaven. Their ambitions stretched toward the sky itself. Jubilees sees this tower building as more than just pride. It was an attempt to escape another flood. Instead of trusting God's rainbow promise, they sought safety in their own creation. They built with baked brick and bitumen, materials that water couldn't easily wash away.
Good news. We got time with the CEO. It's in 40 minutes at the office.
Copilot.
Built with baked brick and bitumen, materials that water couldn't easily wash away. God came down to see this human project. Finding one people with one language building toward heaven, God decided to act, not in rage, as later interpretations often suggest, but in cosmic reordering. The time had come for humanity to spread across the earth as planned. Jubilees gives us precise timing for these events. In the beginning of the 34th Jubilee, the languages were confused. The single human family fractured into 70 nations, matching the 70 angels God had appointed over the peoples. This wasn't random division. Jubilees tells us that lots were cast for each nation. To each angel went a people and a language. To each people went a territory with clear borders. Heaven's order imposed itself on human chaos. But one angel received no earthly nation. The Most High himself became the ruler of a 71st portion, the descendants of Shem through Arpachshad, from whom would come Abraham. God kept one bloodline under direct guidance. Work on the tower stopped. The city that would later be called Babel was abandoned, half-built. The people scattered like leaves falling from their vine. East and west, north and south they went, each group now speaking words the others couldn't understand. Here Jubilees adds a crucial detail missing from Genesis. After the languages were confused, most angels led their assigned nations away from true worship. They taught their peoples to make idols, offer wrong sacrifices, and follow false calendars. The 70 angels became 70 tempters. Only the portion God kept for himself remembered the right ways, at least for a while. Only they maintained the true calendar of 364 days. Only they recalled the proper festivals and Sabbaths. The rest fell into error and ignorance. Nimrod, great-grandson of Noah, built the first kingdom after the confusion. Jubilees portrays him not as a mighty hunter before the Lord, but as the first human to battle against heaven's plan. He built cities and walls. He taught warfare. He created borders that didn't match God's division. The once united human family now lived divided lives. Cousin couldn't speak to cousin. Brother fought against brother. Each group claimed their territory and forgot their common source. The angels assigned to each nation led most of them into deepening darkness. Within this fractured world, true knowledge faded. The calendar Enoch had taught, that Noah had preserved through the flood, was now kept by only a few. Most nations followed lunar months or star patterns that didn't align with heaven's count. 349 years after the flood, in the first year of the second week of the 10th Jubilee, a child was born in Ur of the Chaldees. His name was Abram, later Abraham. Through him, God would begin gathering a people who might remember heaven's timing. The Tower of Babel stands in Jubilees as the moment humanity tried to reach heaven on their own terms, using their own measurements. They wanted to touch the sky without following the path God had set. They sought unity without divine center. The confusion of languages wasn't just punishment, it was protection. If all humanity had continued as one, speaking one language, building one city, their corruption would have known no bounds. Divided, their evil remained local, contained. And so the great division occurred right on heaven's schedule. 70 nations under 70 angels, 70 languages, 70 territories, and one portion kept apart through whom all nations might someday find blessing again. The clock kept ticking. The Jubilees counted on. The stage was set for Abraham to enter the story and receive the covenant that would change everything. Abraham, the timekeeper's chosen one. In the quiet village of Ur, a young boy named Abraham watched his father Terah craft idols from clay and wood. Unlike others in his home, Abraham felt a deep pull toward something greater than these lifeless figures. The stars spoke to him of order and design.
I'm sorry, but Hope, I know what you're talking about now. There must be a mistake. because first Babel was the 34th Jubilee, and now Abraham's the 10th Jubilee. I've got it
Exactly.
noted. Okay, I'm with you.
Random lights, but a cosmic message. One night, as Terah slept, Abraham took a wooden hammer and shattered the idols his father had made. He left only the largest one standing, placing the hammer in its hand. When Terah discovered the broken figures, he demanded answers. "The big idol broke them," Abraham replied with quiet certainty. "Can't you see the hammer in his hand?" "Don't be foolish," his father snapped. "These are just objects I made. They have no power." "Then why do you worship what your own hands have shaped?" Abraham asked. In that moment, something shifted inside him. The Book of Jubilees tells us this wasn't merely a child's prank. It was the first step in a journey that would reshape human history. Unlike the brief account in Genesis, Jubilees paints Abraham as a cosmic revolutionary. At age 14, he began to study the stars not just as lights, but as markers of time. While others followed moon phases, Abraham discovered the true solar year, 364 days divided into 4 seasons of exactly 13 weeks each. "I will not follow the path of lies," Abraham declared to his family.
Common sense says don't get weighed down by travel nonsense. Book with dollar instead.
To his family. The young man turned away from idol worship and toward the God who had set the stars in their courses. This wasn't just spiritual awakening, it was cosmic alignment. When famine struck the land, Abraham's family moved to Haran. There, the young man grew into a teacher. He built a special tower where he tracked the sun's movement, showing anyone who would listen how the true calendar worked. Many scoffed, but some listened. The angel dictating to Moses explains that God watched Abraham closely during these years. Unlike others, Abraham didn't just notice the patterns in creation, he traced them back to their source. He recognized that time itself was a gift, a tool, and a test. One night, as Abraham slept under the desert sky, a voice called to him, "Leave your father's house and go to a land I will show you." This wasn't just a command to travel, it was an invitation to step into a new timeline, one aligned with heaven's design. The journey was long and marked with trials. Jubilees tells us that at each milestone, Abraham built altars not just as acts of worship, but as markers of cosmic significance. Each stone placement happened on specific dates, feast days written in the heavenly tablets long before humans walked the earth. When Abraham reached Canaan, he didn't just claim territory. According to Jubilees, he was reclaiming space that had been divinely allocated to Shem's descendants, but wrongfully seized by Canaan's children. This wasn't mere tribal conflict. It was cosmic realignment, putting things back in their proper order. As Abraham walked the length and breadth of this new land, he wasn't just exploring. He was tracing the boundaries of a divine contract. Each step fell on a timeline set before creation, each movement precisely choreographed by the same hand that placed the stars. The War of the Kings. The dust rose in thick clouds as 4 powerful kings marched their armies toward Sodom. They had already crushed 5 other cities, leaving only ash and tears in their wake. Among their captives was Lot, Abraham's nephew, dragged away with all he owned. When a lone survivor brought news to Abraham, the old shepherd didn't hesitate. Although Genesis tells this story briefly, Jubilees expands the tale, showing us Abraham not as a reluctant warrior, but as heaven's chosen champion. He gathered 318 trained men, a number Jubilees notes is tied to celestial patterns, and moved with surprising speed. Under the cover of night, Abraham split his small band into groups. They fell upon the king's camps like a desert storm, sudden, fierce, and overwhelming. The Book of Jubilees tells us this wasn't just military strategy, but divine timing. Each attack happened at the exact hour predetermined in heaven's records. As dawn broke, the mighty armies that had terrorized the plain lay scattered. Abraham had not only rescued Lot, but had captured vast treasures. According to Jubilees, this victory occurred on the exact anniversary of Noah's landing after the flood, a date when divine justice typically manifests in the world. On Abraham's return journey, a mysterious figure appeared on the road, Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of God Most High. Unlike Genesis, which mentions this meeting briefly, Jubilees presents Melchizedek as more than human, perhaps one of the angels assigned to watch over the sacred timeline. Abraham bowed before Melchizedek, offering 1/10 of all he had taken. This wasn't just generous giving, it was cosmic acknowledgement. By this act, Abraham recognized that his victory belonged to a larger pattern, one written in the stars before his birth. Melchizedek blessed Abraham with bread and wine, symbols whose meaning Jubilees connects to future feasts. Each element carried significance tied to the solar calendar, bread representing the harvest festivals, wine symbolizing joy's proper seasons. The meeting lasted precisely 1 day, from sunset to sunset, a perfect Sabbath observance, though the law had not yet been given to Moses. According to Jubilees, this wasn't coincidence, but evidence that true worship follows heaven's timetable, not human invention. When the king of Sodom offered Abraham wealth as reward, the patriarch refused with words that echo across time. "I will take nothing, not even a thread." Jubilees explains this wasn't just noble character, but sacred wisdom. Abraham understood that accepting payment would bind him to human timelines rather than divine ones. As Abraham journeyed home, stars blazed overhead in patterns only he could fully read. The Book of Jubilees tells us each constellation confirmed to him that history unfolds not by chance, but by design, with each event happening at its appointed time. Circumcision, covenant, and cosmic territory. The night air felt heavy with promise as Abraham stood beneath a sky crowded with stars. "Look up," the voice said. "Count them, if you can." Abraham's eyes traced the familiar patterns, the same stars he'd studied since youth, now framed as his family's future. According to Jubilees, this covenant moment didn't happen on just any night. It fell precisely 50 years, a complete jubilee, from the day Abraham had first rejected idol worship. Heaven's clockwork turned with perfect precision. While Genesis describes this covenant briefly, Jubilees expands the scene dramatically. The text tells us Abraham fell into a deep sleep, but this wasn't ordinary rest. His spirit ascended to witness the heavenly tablets where all of time, past, present, and future, lay written in light. There, Abraham saw how the land would be divided, not by human choice, but by divine decree. Each tribe's territory had been mapped before creation, each boundary drawn by the same finger that traced the paths of stars. This wasn't just real estate, it was cosmic geography. The next morning, Abraham awoke transformed. The vision still burned in his mind as a voice instructed him, "This is my covenant with you. The flesh of your foreskin must be cut away."
I'm Erica Swenson, the Chief Financial Officer at Venture Solar.
Unlike Genesis, which presents circumcision simply as a sign, Jubilees explains it as a physical alignment with celestial patterns, the body modified to match heaven's design. Abraham didn't hesitate. At 99 years old, he took a knife and fulfilled the covenant demand. According to Jubilees, he performed this act during the exact hour when the sun reaches its highest point during the spring feast, another cosmic alignment. As Abraham's household followed his example, every male from 8 days old to servants bought with silver, the angel Mastema appeared before God's throne. "This man grows too powerful," the accuser argued. "Test him further." Jubilees alone tells us of this heavenly dispute, revealing that Abraham's trials weren't random hardships, but cosmic contests. When Abraham recovered from his circumcision, 3 figures appeared at his tent. While Genesis calls them men, Jubilees identifies them clearly as angels, heaven's ambassadors making a scheduled visit on a day marked in celestial records long before Abraham's birth. As Sarah laughed at the promise of a son, Jubilees tells us the sound echoed in heavenly halls, recorded as the origin of Isaac's name centuries before the child's birth. Even human emotions played roles in the cosmic script. After the messengers departed toward Sodom, Abraham stood before his tent. The stars that had once seemed distant now felt like family, points of light connected to his bloodline by unbreakable oath. According to Jubilees, Abraham had become more than a man. He was now a living timepiece, his heartbeat synchronized with heaven's rhythm. Isaac's almost sacrificed dawn painted the eastern sky as Abraham saddled his donkey. The wood lay strapped to the animal's back, and the firepot glowed with hot coals. At his side walked Isaac, now a young man, strong enough to carry the heavy load, but still innocent enough to trust his father completely. While Genesis tells this story in sparse detail, Jubilees fills in the gaps with rich meaning. The journey to Moriah didn't happen on just any day. It fell precisely on the date that would, centuries later, become the Day of Atonement. The timing wasn't chance, but careful design. For 3 days, father and son walked in near silence. According to Jubilees, they crossed rivers whose names matched those flowing from Eden. They climbed hills whose shapes echoed mountains where angels gathered. Every step followed a path mapped in heaven's records. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place God had chosen. Unlike the Genesis account, Jubilees tells us Abraham recognized it immediately, not from any sign, but from deep memory. This was the same spot where Adam had first offered sacrifice, where Noah had built an altar after the flood. "The wood is here and the fire," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb?" Abraham's reply came softly. "God himself will provide the lamb, my son." In Genesis, these words seem like gentle deception, but Jubilees reveals them as prophecy. Abraham had seen the future during his covenant vision and knew exactly what would unfold. When they reached the summit, Abraham built the altar with careful precision. Each stone was placed according to patterns shown to him in dreams, not random rocks, but a cosmic map. Isaac watched, understanding more than the Genesis text suggests. "Father," Isaac said, "bind me well so I don't struggle and make your sacrifice flawed." According to Jubilees, Isaac wasn't a frightened victim, but a willing participant, having been told of his role in the cosmic drama. At 25 years old, he could have easily overpowered his elderly father, but chose submission instead. As Abraham raised the knife, heaven itself seemed to hold its breath. But then a voice called out, stopping his hand. An angel. Not just any messenger, but the same one who had marked the covenant, appeared with a ram caught in nearby bushes. While Genesis describes this as a test of faith, Jubilees frames it as something more, a cosmic rehearsal. This hillside drama mirrored events planned for the distant future, when other fathers would face the loss of firstborn sons on this same date. After the sacrifice, Abraham and Isaac descended the mountain changed. According to Jubilees, they returned home on the precise date that would later become Passover, when death would again pass over the faithful. The timing fulfilled patterns established before creation, when the heavenly tablets were first inscribed: Rebekah, Jacob, and the angelic inheritance. The old servant's caravan approached the well as young women gathered with their water jars. Abraham had sent him on a sacred mission: find a wife for Isaac from their own people, not from Canaan's daughters. According to Jubilees, this wasn't mere tribal preference, but cosmic necessity. When Rebekah appeared, the servant knew immediately. Unlike Genesis, which describes a test involving water, Jubilees tells us the servant recognized her because she matched the exact description given to Abraham by angels years before. Her face, her walk, even the sound of her voice had been foretold. Rebekah's journey to Isaac followed a path marked by divine timing. She arrived at his tent on the anniversary of Sarah's death, a date Jubilees identifies as significant in heaven's records. Their meeting wasn't random chance, but perfect orchestration. For 20 years, Rebekah's womb remained closed. While Genesis mentions this briefly, Jubilees explains it as deliberate timing. The twins needed to be born in a specific year aligned with celestial cycles. Even human fertility followed heaven's timetable. When Rebekah finally conceived, the struggle inside her wasn't just physical discomfort. According to Jubilees, two distinct destinies fought for position, not just two brothers, but two possible timelines for human history. Each kick and turn represented cosmic forces at work. "Why is this happening?" Rebekah asked, pressing her hands against her swollen belly. She went to seek answers, though Genesis doesn't specify where. Jubilees fills this gap, telling us she visited Melchizedek, still alive and serving as heaven's record keeper. "Two nations are within you," the priest told her, "and the older shall serve the younger." These weren't just words of comfort, but cosmic declaration. According to Jubilees, this prophecy was read directly from the heavenly tablets, unchanged since before creation. When the twins were born, they couldn't have been more different. Esau emerged first, red and hairy, grabbing life with both hands. Jacob followed, his hand gripping his brother's heel. First, red and hairy, grabbing life with both hands. Jacob followed, his hand gripping his brother's heel. While Genesis presents this as interesting detail, Jubilees sees profound symbolism. One child rushing ahead of divine timing, the other carefully following heaven's pace. As the boys grew, their paths diverged further. Esau became a hunter, tracking game through wild places. Jacob stayed among the tents, learning the old stories and sacred calendar. According to Jubilees, this wasn't just personality difference, but spiritual alignment. Esau following human impulse, Jacob attuned to divine rhythm. When Jacob prepared stew that fateful day, Jubilees tells us it wasn't random timing. The red lentil soup simmered on the exact anniversary of Abraham's covenant vision. The smell filled the air as Esau stumbled in, famished from hunting. "Give me some of that red stew," Esau demanded. "I'm starving." "First, sell me your birthright," Jacob answered. In Genesis, this seems opportunistic, but Jubilees reveals Jacob's deeper motivation. He knew the birthright belonged to him according to heaven's plan. He wasn't stealing, but reclaiming what cosmic order had already assigned him. When Isaac grew old and his eyes dimmed, Rebekah remembered the angel's words from before her son's birth. According to Jubilees, she didn't invent the deception that helped Jacob claim the blessing. She followed instructions given to her in dreams, where angels showed her exactly how to fulfill heaven's design. As Jacob received his father's blessing wearing his brother's clothes, Jubilees tells us angels watched with approval. This wasn't trickery, but cosmic correction, putting the right son in the right place at the right time, aligning human events with heaven's schedule. Esau's rage at discovering the deception threatened to tear the family apart. But according to Jubilees, even this anger served the greater plan. It forced Jacob to flee, setting him on a journey that would transform not just one man, but an entire people, right on heaven's perfect schedule. Jacob's ladder and angelic visitation. The night fell cold and quiet as Jacob rested his head upon a stone. Fleeing from his brother's rage, he found himself alone between worlds. No longer in his father's house, not yet in the land of Laban. Little did he know that this barren spot would become a bridge between heaven and earth. Sleep came, and with it, a vision unlike any other. A vast ladder stretched from the dust at his feet all the way into the clouds beyond sight. This wasn't just a dream of escape, but a glimpse into the cosmic order that Jubilees describes with such care. Along this gleaming stairway moved the angels, not random messengers, but the organized ranks of heaven. They crossed a boundary that humans rarely see, moving between realms usually kept apart. Up and down they went, carrying reports, delivering judgments, maintaining the divine order that Jubilees insists governs all things. What makes this vision special in Jubilees is how it serves as a border crossing. Jacob stumbles upon a thin place, a spot where heaven touches earth. Unlike Genesis, which keeps the vision brief, and Jubilees expands it into a full celestial meeting. God speaks to Jacob from above the ladder, renewing the promise first given to Abraham. The land beneath the dreamer would one day belong to his countless descendants. Nations would bow before his lineage. But Jubilees adds something crucial. A timeline. This isn't just a vague future promise, but a scheduled event in heaven's calendar. When Jacob wakes, trembling with awe, he doesn't just name the place Bethel, as Genesis tells us. In Jubilees, he performs a full ritual marking the exact date and time of this encounter. He pours oil, makes vows, and establishes the first tax, a tenth of all he owns given back to God. Jacob becomes a timekeeper, just like his grandfather Abraham. But while Jacob establishes this holy site, darker forces plot against him. Mastema, heaven's accuser, watches with growing concern. This divine promise threatens his influence over the nations. In Jubilees, we learn that Mastema tried to claim dominion over the Gentile lands after Babel's confusion. Now Jacob's blessing challenges that claim. The text hints at unseen battles. Angels guard Jacob's path to Laban, warding off dark spirits who would lead him astray. Each step of his journey happens right on heaven's schedule, not a moment too soon, not a day too late. At the heart of this story lies Jubilee's most treasured theme. Nothing in human history happens by chance. The ladder isn't just a pretty image, but proof of ongoing management. Angels don't just deliver messages, they enforce cosmic law, track human behavior, and report every detail back to God. Jacob's dream marks him as the next link in a divine plan spanning countless generations.
All right, we're back.
Thank you, LG.
Welcome. So, Hope, what should we do? Like, when one thing skids off the rails, it's kind of like, okay.
Well, I was just following along, and I have the Book of Jubilees in my lap. And for example, do you mind if I just read you the exact story he just talked about? I mean, it's not very long. The one with Jacob's ladder.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it says, let me get here. It's not very long. It says, and he came to Luz on the mountains, that is Bethel, on the new moon of the first month of this week. And he came to the place at evening, and turned from the way to the west of the road that night. And he slept there, for the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place, and laid it at his head under the tree. And he was journeying along and alone, and he slept. And he dreamt that night, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the messengers of the Lord ascended and descended on it. And behold, the Lord stood on it. And he spoke to Jacob and said, I am the Lord, God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you are sleeping, to you I will give it, and to your seed after you. And your seed will be as the dust of the earth, and you will increase to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. And in you and in your seed all the families of the nations will be blessed. And behold, I will be with you, and will keep you wherever you go. And I will bring you into the land again in peace, for I will not leave you until I do everything I told you of. And Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Truly, this place is the house of the Lord, and I did not know it. And that's the story that he told. I don't see the timetable that he talked about. He said not only did he tell him what he told Abraham, but he gave him a timetable. Maybe it's for I will not leave you until I do everything that I told you of. But I felt like he was there was a lot of places, several places that he talked about with Rebecca, and other places that it was like it wasn't in here. What he was saying wasn't in here. It was kind of embellished, about the cosmic design and the cosmic alignment. So I was a little confused as to the text and what he was saying the text said. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, and that's one of the things, because we have done the Book of Jubilees. You've done it, you read it to us. And we've done it as one of our book club studies. And he does give an opinion. It's like a narrated opinion. Um, and there's a lot of things in here that, for instance, I don't remember when we were studying the Book of Jubilees ever hearing about Mastema. Have you ever heard Satan called Mastema? I guess you have. I missed that.
Yeah, it's here. I mean, he's referred to as, I pronounced it differently, but Mastema or Mastema, however you want to say it. And there was a couple places where it was a different form of that same name. I think it was like Masta or something, but it was the same person. It's kind of here and there throughout the Book of Jubilees.
Okay, but just so I've got my mind wrapped around it. Babel happened before Abraham. I mean, we're right? That shouldn't be a later Jubilee than Abraham.
That's right.
You
Yeah,
know, go ahead.
he circled back. He gave us 34 as the time that the languages were confused at Babel, and then he comes back to Abraham and said it was the 10th Jubilee. So I was very confused. I was hoping that you would catch that, because that's why I said get your pencils out. I want to see if you heard what I heard. But the Book of Jubilees does give you pretty good. Like in the 20th chapter, he's talking about Abraham. And in the 42nd Jubilee, in the first year of the 7th week, Abraham called Ishmael and his 12 sons, and Abraham and his two sons. So it gives you the Jubilees according to what's going on at the time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to think. All right. Well, boy, there was a whole lot, that's for sure. I mean, we started out with the flood, and then we've gone through Babel. Well, we went through Ham, then we went through Babel, all the way. I couldn't remember if it went as far as Rebecca and Jacob and Esau, but it did. Did anybody want to just do a round robin here? Y'all come on up. Are y'all gonna make me do a rundown?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it got started, it was funny because this is all about time, and it said that time began again. So after the flood, when that finally stopped, and then the first thing that Noah did was build the altar. And I wrote down some dates there because it was like 1 year and 10 months after the flood began. And you know that the flood lasted about a year, so we're back to like the 27th day of the 10th month and that. And then he went through and talked about the Noah's three sons, and what had happened with Ham and Noah and the indecency of that, and that strangely enough, Noah, instead of cursing Ham, he cursed Ham's son. And that's what ended up happening. The land had been divided amongst the three sons, and Shem got the middle, which is Israel, which is where our Jesus, his lineage comes from. And then Japheth got the cool north. So that was a pretty good land assignment for him, thinking about the Antarctica and where the Garden of Eden and all of that. And then, but Ham got the hot south, and Ham's lineage was going to be serving Shem's lineage, but then Ham's lineage encroached on Shem's land, and that's exactly what's on our news today. What is happening today goes right back to Ham and Shem and their land assignments. And then it gave some good dates. It said that Noah died 350 years after the flood, which made him 950 years old when he died, which was 19 Jubilees and some odd years. So that's when Noah died, and then it went into Babel from there, because we kind of went through the whole Nimrod, and that's how we got, and then it was 3 generations after Noah, and then that's when humanity was spread out. And it was a little different take than what we always have had, but pretty much in line. But then he does add that the angels led the people away and astray, and that those 70 angels created 70 leaders and 70 nations and 70 languages, and that Nimrod was really the first one that had battled heaven's plans. But that Enoch's calendar began to be faded, and it had only been kept by a few. That's when he starts introducing Abraham and the war. He calls this the War of the Kings, and that resulted in Sodom and Gomorrah and Abraham going to rescue Lot. And then the scattered armies, and how that was an exact date, which was on the anniversary of the flood. And he even mentioned that that 318 being a celestial number. When you add that up, that's 12, just as a side note. Abraham, 99 years old. Let's see what he did here. He became the keeper of the timeline of the divine. Oh, when he was 99 is when that covenant occurred, which was exactly 50 years from the date that Abraham had destroyed all of those idols, with his father. Which was a big deal. And then he did talk about Mastema, and then the three angels, and after the circumcision that Abraham did, he went towards Sodom. He called Abraham a living timepiece. Went into a little bit about Isaac's almost sacrifice, clarified that. That was so helpful. I know a lot of people that really struggle with that part, that story in the Bible. So just that different take that, they knew more than what we think that they know just through Genesis, and that actually became what is now known as the Day of Atonement. And the very spot that Abraham was led to is the same spot that Adam was in, and Noah was in, and now Abraham. And then he called it a cosmic rehearsal. And this became our Passover date. And then he went into Rebecca and how the angels had foretold of this. And even that corresponded with the anniversary of Sarah's death. And then he talked about Esau and Jacob. And we know that whole story. And like Hope was talking about, he kind of ends it with the Jacob's ladder and the stone, and says that it's a scheduled event. And so I guess Jacob had seen this vision of what was going to happen in Bethel, and so he becomes a timekeeper like Abraham, like Enoch, and that's kind of where this portion ended.
That's a wow. How do you do that, LG? I'm always amazed.
Oh, thank you. Well, I take notes. Tonight they were so chicken scratched I could barely read them, but yeah, I just kind of take notes and do an outline. But thank you. I enjoy doing it when I can.
LG, what was your what was your understanding of the sacrifice part, or anybody else here?
Well, that's kind of a hard one. I always thought it was just as simple as Abraham took Isaac out up there and was it wasn't so much that he was tricking him, but that, Isaac certainly didn't know he was a dead man walking and that his own father was fixing to sacrifice him. And it was just kind of one of those, well, thank goodness that, the angel intervened and that didn't happen. But, it never set well with me. I just have to be honest with you. And I think God's okay with that because that's rough. I don't know how it is hard to kind of swallow that. But when he expands on it, it's that Abraham had already been given a divine vision of the future. So he already knew how it was going to turn out. He already knew that at no point in time was there even a question that he was really going to have to kill Isaac. Is that how you took it? Y'all pipe in here.
Yeah, that's what I heard from the video. Yeah, but it's still mind-boggling. That's why.
It helps that they stated that it was a cosmic rehearsal, and then expanded on that to later become the Passover date. That clicked in my mind as understanding why.
Oh, when you just said that, I even wrote that down, cosmic rehearsal, but it wasn't until I heard you say it back, what kind of like Jesus, the sacrificing of Jesus, is that what that means?
I took it for I don't know if it's right on the timeline, but I thought of Exodus with the Passover that saved Israel as they were getting ready to leave.
Yeah, me too. And then I all of a sudden thought about, God as the Father, Jesus as the Son, the Father sacrificing the Son. I don't know, it just now came. But yeah. I wonder who's writing this stuff. Like, are these dissertations that people are writing and then making, because this guy seems kind of collegey to me, but I do like the way because I've heard the Book of Jubilees. I kind of like hearing someone narrate in an opinion, but it's like, who wrote this? Who writes this stuff? Who knows it well enough to have an opinion? I don't understand that.
And well, in the dreams, let's see. Well, maybe it wasn't a dream, but when Melchizedek met Abraham on his journey back, the explanation of the bread meaning harvest and the wine signifying future celebrations, and that's a different take, because I'd always thought of the bread and wine symbolizing Jesus' blood and his body.
That's interesting. And some of the videos, now I'm down to one channel besides this guy. I like the deep Bible stories, not Bible stories, deep Bible stories, two different channels. I've learned that the hard way. But some of what I've been gravitating towards is how we've always read, it's like there's the Old Testament, and that's just before Jesus, but it's just before Jesus. And then you have the New Testament. Well, the deeper you go and the more understanding and the more you hear it and seek it, you start realizing that Jesus is actually throughout the whole Old Testament. The foretelling of him is there. I mean, it's not just speckled in. It is, I don't even know the word for it. Help me out. Hope? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's woven throughout the whole Old Testament. Pictures, types. Moses was a type of Christ. The picture of Isaac and Abraham was a picture of foretelling. So the prophets were not just the only ones that were telling about Christ coming, but it's just really there's pictures throughout the whole Old Testament of what is to come with Christ coming to the earth.
Almost an expansion of the idea of Jesus' parables, um, maybe, but from the Old Testament time.
Yeah, in our life, or mine anyway, it's like it's presented as, Jesus was a reaction, a necessary reaction so that we could have salvation. And what we're talking about him, great word, woven through the Old Testament, he was not a reaction, he was a proaction. It's amazing.
We think about the whole book of Ruth and the kinsman redeemer with Boaz when Ruth lay at his feet and he came and redeemed her. She was a widow. And so just that kinsman redeemer, the story of Esther with the king and Esther coming in and the Jewish people being rescued. Everything was a foretelling and a picture of what Christ was going to do when he came and what he was going to be like.
Yes. And that he was even going to come. Oh, well, do we have any more comments about the video? And we'll snap back to the timeline for just a second. I'll take some notes. I want to see what y'all want me to plot on there. I erased it all. Noah's flood, I erased it all. The little red marks, I erased them. We're starting clean now that we have a correct Jubilee calendar. But before we do that, anything else about the video?
I made a note. I'm sorry, I don't like to be take up the whole time, but I made a note that he said divine judgment appears on at a certain time, and he was talking about both the anniversary, the Noah's flood, and then I think it was it the judge, was it the circumcision, or there was something that happened. It was, and he talked about divine judgment always appears in God's. He called it cosmic alignment, but I just was thinking if we could figure out when exactly the date of the flood and this anniversary, we might could figure out what's going to happen next in our future, because I think that divine judgment is what we're looking at. But anyway, that was a note that I took here.
Yeah, was it the Sodom and Gomorrah? Because it was the covenant, the vision covenant, and then he did the circumcision, and then they went and rescued Lot, and then God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, I think that was it exactly. It was all kind of woven through the same thread when he was talking about circumcision, but he was also talking about Lot being rescued and then Sodom and Gomorrah being the judgment. But it was the same anniversary of the flood. So I thought we need to find out what date that was, because I think that would be very interesting to figure out.
Yes. So I've got, you know what I've got? You know whose timelines I still use? Is Snowbirds. Like for the flood and stuff, I have those. I'll pop those over on here. But while we do that, I don't know if y'all will like this question or not. We can pass if you don't. But when you were talking about those divine judgments and we're like the flood, okay, we know what that was. Babel. Oh, okay, we know what that was. Um, Sodom and Gomorrah. Oh, we know what that was. How does that make y'all feel? Like, if knowing that, okay, let's say we figure out such and such is the anniversary of the flood or Sodom and Gomorrah or one of those, um, that those judgments are, um, what's the word? What's a proper word to use? There's a before and after. They're monumental. How does that make y'all feel? Well, that's a hard answer. That's a hard question. I myself am perfectly fine with whatever happens because it's all divine. Whatever it is, we know we're going to be on the right side of it. So,
Well, with that cosmic reordering that noted, that was beginning of the 34th Jubilee when the language was confused. He said that God came down, and it must have took a lot to get God to physically. I took it literally. God came down and was present to deliver that judgment. And wow, I'd be really shaking my boots if I saw God come down and being angry. Um, it's like you knew you crossed the line. Something. Oh man, this is bad. So, and then with the four kings at Sodom, uh, they took Lot captive, and then 318 select men attacked those four kings one at a time, and Lot was rescued. That shows the might of God at work. That wow, that's just amazing, and it would have I've just been flabbergasted to see that. So I think with all, I think of seeing God move. how I feel about that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I do too. What is that? We use that saying a lot. That's because it's so real. And that's that peace beyond all understanding. And especially like what we were talking about, Jesus being woven through the Old Testament and then him being there from the very beginning. So, I just know they've got us. It's been they have it totally under control, and it's for the eternal kingdom. And yeah, I'm all in. I don't, no matter what, I have total trust.
One thing that this portion of this video brought out was that everything everything is planned, and everything is um, according to God's divine design. And he talked about the angels who were given responsibility after the flood, and many of those angels, I think he said that only 1/10 of the angels were allowed to be loosed, the rest were bound, and that there were 70 um, of those 10%, there were 70 that were given charge over the nations, but most of those angels led their people away from God on purpose, and that they had that freedom, they had the free will to do that. But I thought that was very interesting, and also what gave me comfort though was that he said something else about God giving humanity was being guarded and kept by the angels, and that we all are being, he said, I think it was maybe, I listened to so much of it, I get confused. It could have been in the beginning, but he talked about how both heaven and earth were in this battle, but that people, human beings, are being kept and guarded according to God's will. And it just gave me comfort to think, okay, not only, do I know from Scripture that God has a purpose for me, but that I'm being kept and watched by angels. It was just another layer of confirmation and comfort to me, right in this particular time we're living.
Well said. And knowing that they're surrounding our leaders.
Yes, surrounding our leaders and with purpose and with God's divine plan, in mind. That's great comfort when you don't know what's true and what's not. So, that was a really good and comforting part of this segment tonight.
I was thinking about the war. You know, Abraham timed it with the Jubilee and all that. And I was thinking about the war that started on Friday the 13th, June 13th, where with Iran. So do they have the calendar right? If that they have the calendar right, then it's 2025 is Jubilee. But they also timed it as far as the days and all that, right? So and the time. If they haven't, I mean, I'm talking about Israel. They have the right. I was thinking about that. Do they have the right calendar? If they have the right calendar, the God's rhythm of seven, then they've been crying, screaming for all these years since 1992 about Iran getting nuclear and all that. But this action was taken, 2025, just a few days ago. So I was thinking about if they're doing it with the because we have a few times twice 2 weeks ago we were talking about, we probably, the 2024 and 2025, that's probably, we're looking at one of the charts, the Jubilee calendar. Jubilee probably is the 2024. According to one of my decodes, 2024 is Jubilee, but it kind of goes into 2025 because our years have been kind of mushed together, throughout the losing of time and all that. But anyway, I was thinking, if the Israelis, they have it, they really have the calendar, that would be something interesting. Anyway, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm tracking with you. I'm putting something on the board. And Yoko, this is the line of the Jubilee chart that we are somewhere in. So, like the Jubilee years, when you look at the big numbers under the word Jubilee, so starting at the left, reading to the right, you see the red 126. So that means that the 126th Jubilee occurred 6,174 years after Adam fell from the year 7 BC. So we're probably somewhere, probably up towards the 130, 131, something like that. The next exercise I'm going to do is break down that row of Jubilees that we're looking at into the, there's 21 49-year cycles in each one of those squares. And within those 49-year cycles is 7 sets of 7. So that's what I'm going to do next, is determine the years of each set of 7 years. I don't know why, but that's what I'm led to do next. So that's my next assignment for myself. But in saying that, we're going to eventually get down to where we know, like, at least within 3 choices. Are we in 130, 131, or 132? Or 133? But that, even though we don't know that, those bigger numbers, the one in the middle, the single number, that's the exact creation year that Jubilee occurs in. And then the numbers below is the window of time. So what you're saying, Yoko, is what I'm trying to do, so that when we can get a hit on a certain date, that we'll be off and running.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to that. Zooming in on the years. That's what you're talking about, breaking it down to 7s instead of 49, or 1,029. So I was, shoot, I lost my thought. Yeah. So according to the video, so we looking at these important people that from the Old Testament, Enoch, and then Noah, Abraham, and Jacob. So I don't think did I miss anybody? I don't think so. So in between, all these 4, even Jacob, when he was born, he was even followed the rhythm of coming out, right? He was talking about that. But I don't know if it's opinion or is it really in the books. But anyway, so it's like following the rhythm. So they have it. They have and they lost it because when Abraham was still searching, right? So he found it. So there was in between, there was some gap in between. So right now we lost it and we are searching again. You know, I'm not saying we're so great, but we are in a group, we are pretty great. But anyway, so that's where I'm at. But I approach it in a few different ways, in not which is more important, but I do quite a bit of decode. But this past week I haven't really done it because been preoccupied with what's happening. But I'll do my best. This is what I have to say. But this is a it's a research, right? It's a research looking, so it's not going to be something where we're used to it, instant, gratification. It's going to be a while, I think, but we're doing it, and I really do appreciate that, LG. Thank you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think what I'm looking for is, so let's say that we can find something that says that Peter died, I don't know, 30 years after Jesus was crucified. And then we find something else that says, oh, well, that happened in the year 60 AD. And then we find something else that says it happened in a different year. So it's like we're looking for the events and we need to trace them back to the time since crucifixion that they happened. But we also need more than one source saying what AD date it was. And the source needs to be almost from antiquity, meaning, 1500s or so. And then what we'll start finding is that after 1500, they'll give us an AD date for something that happened. But if we can then take that same event and find in the Bible that, this was going to occur, let's say that it says that this was going to be 10 generations after so-and-so, and we know how many years one generation would be. So we would know around about what time span it would take for 10 generations to occur. But then when we look at the AD date that they're giving us after the 1500s, when they change things, you go, well, there's no way that can be right because that wouldn't be enough time for 10 generations. Or you go, there's no way that could be right because that's way too little time for it to have encompassed 10 generations. We're going to have to find some kind of post-crucifixion date and then find the deception and land on the correct AD date.
That's excellent. I think we have to, part of it right, I gotta just thinking that we have to, because it's not just about it's about the recent, not just about the recent war, but when Abraham, that war, when I thought about it, I said, okay, so we have to, I'm gonna try to find the time of I know the date that Israel started the war, but I'm gonna try to, because their calendar will be the closest, but we need it to be exact. But as a reference, it'll be the closest, or if not the exact, of God's rhythm of seven. I don't, and also I did another decode last week, was rhythm of seven rules. the White Dragon Society. Now, White Dragon Society is not the cabal. This dragon is supposedly the White Hats. So this is interesting, but it's neither here or there because they don't have any event I can really pinpoint that I know of. So, but anyway, so if anybody knows that, then they can try to see. But because from there, if they're involved in something big happens in our history, or recent history, we remember, we write it down. Probably even it'll be great if we can get the time to, then we can put it together and then look at it. You know, it's a research, right? Look at it and see, because I I I don't want it to come close. I want us to pinpoint it, to get it, because if it coming close is not good enough, that means we're off. So it has to be his time, his rhythm, and we have to be on it, and then we'll do it. But anyway, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that goes to the reason for the breakdown. All right, so remember what I said. Now I want to find out. So one Jubilee is 49 years, one of those square blocks. Well, they're actually 1029, but point is, I want to break down the segments and which year of the window each segment occurred, because the actual Jubilee year would be a year of celebration and all the good things. So, for instance, the Tower of Babel, that wouldn't have been in a Jubilee year. That would have been in a year of reckoning, which is one of the 7 parts. The flood, that may have been in the last window before the 49th year, because, you know, they were on the water for a year, and then he immediately got out, built the temple. Well, maybe at the end of the year was the 49th year, which was the Jubilee. But the year before, when the destruction, the massive event, like what we were just talking about, occurred, that wasn't the Jubilee year. It was just one of the increments of the 7. That's why we need to break it down, because of what you just said, Yoko. We can't just line up an event that was a disaster with a Jubilee year, because a disaster would not have occurred in a Jubilee year. It's a paradox. It can't happen. Oxymoron, whatever you want to call it. Right? Am I thinking right?
Yeah, you're thinking right. You know, you were talking, this is how you began. When you get a flash and you remember and you forget it. I'm having that right now.
Welcome to my world. It happens 100 times a day. It's really frustrating.
It has to do with, yeah, okay. So Abraham, the almost sacrificed his son. So that's a Jubilee year, right? He's doing that that's a Jubilee year. No? Did I misunderstand that, or anybody agrees with that?
I don't know. That's why I want to find out because even though we're dealing with hundreds of Jubilees, every 49 years, the same thing, the same sequence of the rhythm happens. It doesn't matter if you're in the Jubilee cycle of 34 or 150. The same sequence of events happens. So the first set of 7 years, this happens. The second set of 7 years, this happens. And I'm trying to learn, I just haven't had time, what those cycles are. So one is you plant, one is you reap, one is you rest, one is, what would you call it? Retribution. And so if we can find out what each set, the type of event that occurs, that's going to apply to all Jubilees. And then when we can start plotting events and get a pattern going of, okay, this event signifies a harvest. This event signifies judgment and destruction. This event signifies rest. And if we, and it's out there, we just have to take the time to do it, then we'll be able to start plotting current events, which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and the Jubilee one is that the land is given back to the owner. That's the 49th one, the Jubilee one. So what I'm saying is that when you think about this, might be a little bit. This is interesting because after World War II, what in 1947 or 49, I don't remember exact year. I need to get the exact year, but that Israel, right, was given back to the Jews. So that I'm sure somewhere, I don't know if their calendar was correct, but I'm sure it's somewhere somebody's using a Jubilee calendar for that. All right, it's not just they don't just throw the dice and pick a year, pick a date. No, so they're going according to their calendar's Jubilee year. That's our calendar. That's our, we have our political point of view, but that's besides that. We're looking at the calendar now. So that's what I'm thinking, that because the 50th one, what we heard from the video and also what we heard from what we read about Jubilee is 50th, the Jubilee year, the one that you give the land back. So that's the most recent one in our history that I can think of that happened. And so that's what I'm thinking. Something to look at.
I think that was 1948 when Israel was started. Another thing that they said was with the Rainbow Covenant and with Noah building that altar, they said the rainbow is a marker. And then Noah's first act was to build that altar. So, and the land was fresh and new. It was a fresh start then. So there's possibly two events.
So 48 was when, what, they signed a treaty? They signed? Was that 48? Was it?
As I understand it, yes.
Was through the UN or through the UN? Yeah. Am I right or am I correct?
That's how I understood it, was 1948, and it was also called the generation of the fig tree from a Bible teacher that I heard.
Oh, but here's the tangled web. And this is what we've been saying all along. All right, you're talking, Yoko. I do. I think the white hats know the Jubilee calendar, the real calendar cycle, the rhythm, and I think the black hats knew it too when they existed. So what do? They invert things. So it would be just like them for it to appear that they were given land back to Israel on a Jubilee year. But really, what they were doing was still in the land because the cabal was in control already. So it would be just like them. And that's what we were talking about, what this picture may paint is it's a true Jubilee year, but they invert the goodness and replace it with badness through trickery.
Yeah, that's great. But also we have to remember that because of that, we can hone in on saying 1948. Well, I got to do more research on, but 1948 was a Jubilee year. If we can get that, we're really close, right? 1948, 1947, or 1948, 1949. We have to see, because the 2 years will bleed into each other as one year, the Jubilee year. But anyway, so that's wonderful.
Exactly. And back to the 2001, I'm sure that's going to be something. Same as what we're talking about with the Israel. All right, Yoko. Well, do you want to call for wrap-ups? We didn't get our 1.5 hour mark, but we'll beat the 2 hour here. And of course, it's recorded, and I enjoy it when I edit the videos because I really get to absorb everything that was said. And I just want y'all to know how great you are. When I go through that and I really, and just in the zone and the conversation that happens and everything that you all zoom in on and talk about, it's just priceless. It's beyond great. So I appreciate it.
Does anybody else have any questions or want to say something? Okay.
Back
Oh,
to
I'm sorry. Go
back,
ahead. Go ahead.
okay, back to when Hope was talking about the 70, or at the confused languages and the 70 angels scattered the people, and they led the people away. They were called the 70 tempters, and their job was to introduce error and ignorance to the people that they led astray. Thought that was interesting.
Yes, it was. And it's just odd how that happened. And it's even more odd that it had a 7 in it many times. 70 angels, 70 nations, 70 languages.
Okay. I think this is a good spot to end. And next time it will be on the 26th of June, next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be going on to another half an hour of the video. And then I'm sure that in between, LG is going to come up with the zooming in on the charts that she's going to be creating. So we'll be talking about that too. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to ask if Hope, you can close this with a blessing. Thank you.
I'll be happy to. Let's pray together, guys. Father, we thank you so much for this time tonight that we've been able to study this book of Jubilees, and we've been able to hear this video about
about this book and about the timeline. We thank you that we've been able to get some new insights tonight about certain parts of the calendar, the jubilees, certain specific jubilees, and we ask that you would help us to take those new findings and be able to apply them to learn the truth about where we are in time. And we thank you so much for preserving this book for us and for your word that continues to give us insight and wisdom. We thank you for your spirit that guides us and directs us. We pray that you would protect us from error and from being deceived. We know that we have been deceived. We ask that you would guide us into truth. We thank you for your goodness, your faithfulness. Thank you that you love us and that you care for us and that you've arranged all of eternity in the way that you have with the divine plan that we are a part of. We just thank you so much, Father, for your sovereignty and your goodness throughout time, your faithfulness to us. We ask, Lord, that you would give us all wisdom and guidance. And I pray your blessing on each person on this call tonight. I pray that you would give us all wisdom and discernment to know how to interact and how to add to this conversation. I thank you for LG and for Yoko, and I just ask you to give them especially just multiply their time back to them, continue to guide them and give them wisdom. And we just thank you so much again for this time we've had, and we look forward to our next gathering. And we ask all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you and good night.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night, everybody.